sort of Dorset Eye production, a weekly overview of looking at different things that have occurred both locally, nationally, internationally. I'm Jason Crewland.
And I'm Tom Lane. Nice to see you all.
It's nice to see you, mate. Nice sunny day out here at last.
Yeah, it's fantastic out there, and really excited to be part of this new show. As you say, each week we'll be looking at local, national, international stories, have some invited guests to talk about particular topics, and I'm really looking forward to it. It should be really fun and interesting.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, hopefully, as weeks go by, the viewers, readers of Dorset Eye will maybe let us know what they would like for us to cover. As this is the first week, it's down to you and me, mate. And we've started off with sort of a slightly alarming issue, is the rise or the decreasing numbers of racism that are taking place in the county, and increasing times that the police are actually identifying it as a causation behind criminal activity as part of, sort of race hate. So you can see here, for example, that we have lots of issues that are taking place, from the east of the county right through to, Weymouth more locally. And this is just in the last couple of weeks. The racially aggravated in Christchurch. A 9-year-old was attacked in a park in Bournemouth by a gang of kids, and multiple arrests that followed a racially aggravated assault in Weymouth, which involved local Weymouth people attacking a group of Brazilians. So it's worrying, isn't it, Tom? It's really worrying that we live in 2021, and these instances are so I don't know, commonplace. It used to be a little bit more unique, I think, didn't it, locally, but not so much.
Yeah, I think the last sort of 6 or 7 years, there's been an increase in both racism and racially motivated hate crime for all sorts of reasons. I mean, first of all, good to recognise that these crimes are being recognised for what they are, as racially motivated attacks. Sometimes in the past they haven't been recognised by the police as such. So good that they're being recognised for what they are now. But obviously it'd be good to explore some of the reasons why there's been an increase over the last few years.
A lot of people sort of suggest that Brexit opened the can, and I think it's probably got some substance. But what other factors would you identify, sort of maybe locally and nationally, and even internationally, that are part of the causation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that some of the Brexit debate undoubtedly was racist and anti-immigrant. The idea that immigrants are taking our jobs, and some of the, of course, prior to the referendum, a lot of the tabloid newspaper front pages were covered with anti-immigrant hatefulness, essentially. And on top of that, we've got politicians both here and in America who regularly spout things which are essentially, racist and anti-immigrant. Johnson has done that. Trump obviously did that on a regular basis, and other politicians as well. And we have an environment, being created in this country that, where we talk about a hostile environment for people that are living and working here. It's quite extraordinary, really, that we would want to create a hostile environment for anybody, any human being, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, Brexit contributed to it. Undoubtedly, the billionaires' tabloid newspapers want to encourage people to have racist and anti-immigrant views for various reasons, and some of the leading politicians internationally have added to that problem.
I was very interested reading a couple of months ago, because I don't know if you're aware, but the Daily Mirror Group took over the Express, and they put in place a new editor. And the first thing the editor came out and said, I was really encouraged by him, saying, all of the refugee stories are going to go from our front pages. We're not going to now rely upon that sort of populist, xenophobic, racist perspective in order to attract people, which, you know, is encouraging, but it's still, you know, a drop in the ocean, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's a positive step at least. And the Express were the most guilty newspaper for having, you know, on a daily basis, anti-immigrant headlines. Of course, when Murdoch's News of the World ended after phone hacking scandals, which of course was quickly replaced by The Sun on Sunday. But anyway, the News of the World ended temporarily, if you like, and some journalists that were involved with the News of the World openly came out and said, yeah, you know, remember all those stories that used to be front page where we'd say, look at this immigrant family that are living in a £2 million house in Kensington and claiming 80 grand in benefits. Yeah, we just made that stuff up. We used to make that up, and it made the front page. And if we got caught out for making that stuff up, we published an apology about that big on page 38. Yeah. I am all for that notion. There's a bit of a campaign for it, for any newspaper that publishes a false story to publish the retraction, apology and fact on the same page and the same size as the original story. Why should that not be the case? I absolutely think that should be the case.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing that I think that we are now talking about it a lot more, because I think, you know, I just sort of start off this piece by sort of saying, you know, we seem to be seeing a lot more of it. But I think one of the reasons we're seeing a lot more of it is because less and less people are prepared to put up with it, and more legislation has been introduced to identify race hate as a crime, and by being a crime, it adds on more years or time to a sentence, which we have to encourage, which is a good thing. I mean, what would you say there in terms of the local issues in relation to these incidents to be identified? Can you think of any solutions, anything that we could be doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think, you know, I always tend to think education for people of whatever age, of all ages, cradle to grave, education tends to be the answer to most of our problems and issues in society. The better educated people are, the more able they are to contribute to a positive society and make good decisions, and elect politicians that will act on behalf of the vast majority of our people, rather than a select few rich people. So and certainly with the issue of race and racism, I think young people are leading the way, and we've seen that in the last year with Black Lives Matter protests, involvement with young people in anti-racist groups, and anti-prejudice in other ways as well, tackling sexism, homophobia, etc. Young people are really leading the way, and I think saying to us older people that this world you've created that's based on greed, that's based on prejudice and discrimination, and not looking after the planet, we've had enough of that. This is destroying our planet, our societies and our futures. And we're not going to stand for that. And I think that's great to see young people really leading the way, you know, with anti-racism and other issues.
And it's still difficult, though, for some young people to confront the racist attitudes of their parents, for example. And if their parents do have racist attitudes, even if their parents aren't necessarily aware of their own attitudes, their own behavior, it still molds their children, doesn't it? It still molds the way their children think, it molds what their children say, and obviously their general behavior. So how, you know, just finishing off, how would you help to alleviate the parents of these attitudes, bearing in mind they are still playing a very significant part in the upbringing of their children?
Yeah. It's a really difficult question to answer. Again, I think, you know, education, I think the answers aren't simple, because the answers involve a massive change in society. They involve, you know, a change in the way that our politicians and our media report and present issues to do with race and immigration. I mean, in my opinion, what's happened and why we've seen an increase in racially motivated attacks is that we have a system of capitalism that's based on competition. Society is one big competition, and with modern day capitalism or late stage capitalism, what we're seeing is a tiny percentage of the population who are unbelievably obscenely wealthy doing really well, and the vast majority of the population actually doing worse and worse and worse, getting poorer and poorer, and less access to services and the things they need to survive and thrive for their families. And that's what happens with late stage capitalism.
So it's scapegoating.
So the right wing politicians across the world who prop up this unfair system know that the vast majority of people, there'll come a point where the vast majority of people will say, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. It's not good for us. It's only good for a tiny amount of people that are obscenely rich. The rest of us are really suffering and not benefiting from this system. And they'll vote for something completely different. So to stay in power and to propagate this system, they have to create blame. They have to take away the blame from the capitalist system and from right-wing policies of government, and get people to believe that their economic and other problems are the fault of someone else. Benefit scroungers, immigrants, etc. And so they use, those tropes, racist and other tropes, to encourage people to blame other poor people, essentially, rather than people actually, recognizing where the blame should fall with our system and our policies that benefit a small number of rich people. But until we change that whole system, I can't see us, changing how things are very much.
That's what we need to finish off on this. But I think locally, I suppose the problem is to have people who are trapped in these situations, determined largely by economics and social, who can't really find a way out. And the problem you've described is so big and so historical and very much wrapped up in culture. But like you also pointed out, many young people are leading the way. So many young people are either rejecting their parents' racism, or they're confronting their parents' racism, or they're confronting the racism amongst their peers. And I guess that is how we need to move forward.